Welcome to Discover Indie Film. I'm Jeff Howard, and I have Vidya Iyer with me. Hi, Vidya.
Hey, Jeff.
It is so great to meet you.
So great to meet you, too. Thanks for having me.
And I will let everyone know right off the bat that this is our first meeting because your film, Giving Mom the Talk, was at Sherman Oaks Film Festival in 2025, last December, and you weren't able to attend, which is totally cool. We understand it happens.
Yeah, I mean, I was out of the country. I was in India visiting my family, so unfortunately I missed it. But I heard from our cast that they had an incredible time, and I am hoping I will make it to the festival this year.
And it was I actually did sneak into that block because we had 2 alumni in that block, so I snuck in, and the audience just ate up Giving Mom the Talk. The laughter. It's just so great to be in a theater with other humans and hear people laughing at a film that I'm a huge fan of, as I told you.
Thank you.
But let me add to the introduction, which is that Giving Mom the Talk at Sherman Oaks Film Festival took home the Grand Jury Award for Best Short Film Comedy, and you took home the Filmmakers Award for Outstanding Director of a Comedic Short.
Yeah, I did. Thank you so much. That was also just such a pleasant and joyful surprise because, you know, Giving Mom the Talk is my directorial debut. It's the first movie I've directed ever. So that was kind of just lovely.
Congrats. And by the way, it is so well directed. I love so many decisions you make. It's not just well written and wonderfully acted, but there are a lot of directing choices, and there's a lot of things done that you do stylistically as a director that I think makes it stand out.
Thank you.
And I'll add that the Filmmakers Award, so that's decided by the Filmmakers Board, which is a jury of our alumni. So it's active filmmakers, people who've had films at the festival, and they're still making films, whereas those Grand Jury Awards, not that your Grand Jury Award isn't wonderful, but that's a selection jury, so it trends a little older and a little lamer, whereas the hip, cool Filmmakers Board. So anyway, that's an award from your peers, is what I'm trying to say.
That's amazing and very, very validating. Like I said, because it's my directorial debut, to have my directing skill especially validated was just lovely.
Excellent. And you've had a wonderful festival run. And I didn't ask you before we hit record, but are you still on the festival circuit, or are you going to put it online soonish?
We are still on the festival circuit, shockingly. You know, it's that part of the festival circuit where you're just like, I forgot I submitted to things still, and it's still going on, because I don't always check when the notification dates are and stuff, but we've got upcoming screenings at Series Fest in Denver, Colorado, and May 7th. I think. So that's our upcoming screening. And then we are screening in Chicago at the Asian American Showcase. And then we've got at the end of April at Minnesota Zeitgeist Film Festival. But then pretty soon after that, it's going to go online.
But you never know because, right, you apply and everyone has a different schedule. And sometimes you get an acceptance email and you're like, oh, I forgot I submitted to that one.
And that's also been such a lovely experience. But I've had just festivals that saw us at a different festival and invited us to screen, which is what happened with the Asian American Showcase and a couple others where I think it was like, I'm trying to remember. There was one more where they just invited us because they saw us at another fest. It was a North Carolina film festival. It was really great.
That's so cool. Actually, a cool thing about this is our 11th year, and we have one of our alumni is a programmer at the Anchorage International Film Festival. So he always sends me an email and he's like, what were the best ones? And then they end up in Anchorage where, you know, needless to say, I'm like, okay, you're in Anchorage. I'll help you out.
Yeah.
I don't think it, you know, there's no competition between us, but
yeah,
it is very cool when being in one festival leads to other good festivals too.
Great. And we did play at Anchorage in December. Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
We played at Anchorage last year because I met another filmmaker, Steven, at the Cleveland Film Festival, and he is based in Anchorage, Alaska. And he told me that the Anchorage Film Festival is incredible. So he was like, submit.
I got to tell you, I am jealous. I mean, not that I want to fly up to Alaska the day our festival wraps up, but like they take all the filmmakers out on a glacier. Like they have an Alaskan experience.
So bad.
And like we don't get to do, we don't, you know, needless to say, when those who travel to LA for our film festivals, obviously there are things for them to do in LA. We don't have to like, okay, let's all go to Harry Potter World together. But I'm kind of jealous of the destination festivals sometimes.
Seriously, especially like I think we played at Cordillera and we had a great experience because they showed us around Reno and took us to like, you know, a small town where there's like all these great sets from the Westerns and like I think Killers of the Flower Moon shot there. And then they took us to like Tahoe for a little retreat. And that was great. And I really would have loved to have made it to Alaska just for like that experience with the glacier and everything. Sure. But again, I was in India.
Like you said, which is very, very different from Alaska.
Very different. I did go on some trips.
You were not on any glaciers.
I was not on a glacier because I was very far down south. But I think if I waited up north, I could have seen some icebergs, maybe? I don't know.
Yeah, go up to the Himalayas.
Yeah. Which I've never been, but that would be cool. But yeah, Anchorage, again, great film festival. I wish I'd made it out there. It's just hard in December because that's the only time of year I get to go visit my family.
Yeah. In between Thanksgiving and New Year's is your chance to go home. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so that's like the hard time with the programming film festival. And you're like, well, I have to go see my family.
And the name of your film is Giving Mom the Talk, and there's a wonderful mother-daughter relationship in it. So I'm just now reading into it that it's pleasant for you to go see your mom and your family.
Well, yes, it is. Yeah. I obviously, I miss my parents, and I think there's also an aspect of this where, at least with the film itself, people think it's very, it's autobiographical, and it's absolutely not. I didn't mean to. I just mean there's a good relationship. It is a good relationship. I mean, my mom is nothing like the mom in the film, other than the fact that I think they're both doctors, and my mom's also a gynecologist. But they're very much not alike. Other than we have a very loving relationship, but it's definitely does not look like the relationship over there.
And thanks for saying that, by the way. It's very funny. I've had to have talks. Maybe this is boring for the podcast, but I've actually had to have talks with our moderators now because I don't get to moderate anymore. I have to manage. And I'm like, just never assume the autobiographical thing. Because you're creative. People are creatives. And that the whole thing is to make things up and just don't assume. I've seen some really cringy Q&As where someone goes, so.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, that's actually very rude. So now I have to pre-warn moderators to be like, just don't. Ask them where the story came from.
Unless it's a documentary,
right?
It's not going to be, or if it's a biopic, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But even with a biopic, it's going to be creative license. Because I think I've seen that happen even in book tours of authors that I like, and the moderator is like, so are you the main character? And it's the author was like, no, it's a book set in a fictionalized version of hell. How do you and it's also just yes, there might be parts of you in characters, just there's, that's just what we draw in our lives for inspiration. But not to write that exact story, because that's just not going to be exciting.
Exactly, and it's about, especially with screenwriters and authors both. It's just silly to assume, because obviously you're writing so many different stories. The autobiographical assumption is just Well, obviously you hit a nerve for me, because I'm just it just bugs me. But so. I brought up that it's not online yet, so I could just say to you now, if and when it is, just fire off an email and we'll make it a clickable link in the show notes so anyone who hears this down the road can watch it, because they should, because it's so darn funny. I mean, it's just, I mean, before we started recording, I cursed for the adjective before the word funny, but it's just absolutely smart, funny, feels truthful and sincere, and so it's just wonderful comedy. So
thank you.
Good on our jury for giving you the award for best short comedy.
Thank you. Yes, good on them.
And now, and you mentioned it's your first directing. So what got you into filmmaking? Did you start with writing? Were you always a creative kid? Were you always a storyteller naturally?
I don't know about naturally. I think I loved stories since I was a kid. My dad's an incredible storyteller, and I think he used to like all the time we spent together, like after he would come home from work, was him telling me stories. And he is an incredible storyteller, and I think there's a part of me doing this that's just me trying to chase that level of excellence that my dad just naturally has when it comes to telling story, because he would tell me, like, I actually didn't, and this is such a weird thing to say as a writer, but I think I didn't start reading books until I was a teenager, like reading a lot of books. Like, it's not like I didn't read, to be clear, but like reading stories until I was a teenager because I never had to, because my dad had just digested all these incredible stories, all of the Sherlock Holmes stories, all of these stories that he'd read in Tamil, which is our, native language, all of these stories of like Tolstoy and Dostoevsky. And he would just tell me those stories, me as a kid, in a way that I could understand, but was not dumbed down, but was still easy for me to grasp. And he would narrate them from memory, not from reading me a story, but would just tell me a story, like paint a really clear picture of what was happening. He would act out dialogue when it was necessary. And I think he's an incredible storyteller. So I think from a young age that inspired me. And then I started writing short stories, like fiction, when I was 12. And then I started getting stuff published, and then I had like blogs, and then I was kind of making money writing. I worked for an online magazine for a while, and so
it was that when you were still in school?
Yeah, it was maybe like from 12 onwards, so maybe like 14, 15,
so
and then
you're getting
16.
Published and actually getting some financial rewards for writing.
I mean, for me as a kid, it was like a lot of money, it was like $200-$300 for like a piece. Like, that was pretty nice. And
it beats mowing lawns.
And it was also like, it was just for the fun of it. And then I was the editor of my college newspaper, and I continued to kind of publish pieces. I would cover like campus events and stuff like that. And I would write, like I was writing novels, like, and fan fiction for shows that I really liked. So Smallville, which is the CW show about Clark Kent before he becomes Superman, which is, to me, one of the most fun shows that has ever been made.
The fan fiction thing is very valid, and I actually there was someone on this podcast like a month or two ago. I'm not remembering which person, but they discovered writing in Buffy the Vampire Slayer improv chat groups on like early internet, like AOL Instant Messenger, like people just pretending to be characters and just. They would literally just write a script together live playing the characters. So yeah, fan fiction's legit.
It's legit. And I've like read some of the best short stories or, writing that I have, like, that I didn't write, but on those forums of fan fiction that I was on, and I was like, oh, it's just good writing. And because it's so stripped of like the need to prove anything to anyone and comes just from like the love of characters, it's just so fun to read like fan fiction, because you're like, oh, this is just one, it's so validating to a show that has that kind of fan base, because you're like, oh, you created characters in a world that other people feel so much buy into that they want to write more stories in that world so that they can live in it longer and build out that universe. And I think that's beautiful, and that's like the dream. Like, I want to create the show that other people are writing fan fiction for, where you're like, oh, I love this world so much that I want to add to it. But then I did the fan fiction, and I went to college in India for computer science engineering. But I continued to write for a while, and then once I graduated, I was like, let me like look into this. I kind of wanted to write for TV. I knew I wanted to write for TV comedy because I'd been watching a lot of TV comedy at the time. I was watching, Friends and That 70s Show and Malcolm in the Middle and Happy Endings, like all these great sitcoms, and that's what I wanted to write. I knew for very certain, and I was like, well, I don't know if this is a legit job. Like, how do you do this, you know? But I was like, let me look into it. Let's see. And this was when the internet was very handy. There was so many scripts available online for me to read. And I was like, okay, let's just write one of these, see what happens. I read a bunch of them, and then I wrote my first like TV pilot.
Right, so you learned formatting from reading scripts.
Yeah.
And then you knew how to adapt it.
Just figured out. I mean, I also I think the best thing you can do with any of this is just watch a bunch of the stuff you like. And I think your brain will very much, the more you consume it, be like, okay, I could do that. It's like the OG generative intelligence, artificial intelligence.
Yeah, but also that's if you're a creative person, right? A creative person watches that and they think of how I could create something. A lot of people just watch a million hours of TV and don't even think about writing something. But your father gave you a love of storytelling, and you inherited that, and so you saw that this is another form of storytelling, I'm sure.
Yeah, it was, and I think it was one that really appealed to me because it was so character focused. And like, very honestly, at the time when I first decided to do this, I had almost no interest in doing features. Like, I wasn't like a film nerd. I was a TV nerd, like through and through. Like, so I wrote my first script. I literally Googled the top 5 film schools, applied to all of them. I interviewed at 3, and then I ended up coming to AFI, which is in Los Feliz.
Yeah, wonderful program.
Great program. I did my MFA in screenwriting there. It was just, for me, it felt like the right choice because I've never been the kind of writer who wants to like sit in a room and write by myself. Like, I know I can do that, but I was like, I don't need to go to school to do that. But I wanted to be able to go and meet people and make something with them. And the AFI program is like a conservatory, so you could work with all the disciplines. We made 3 short films our first year and a thesis film our second year. So I think I got to be on set. I got to collaborate with everybody else. We got to make stuff. And I think that's the joy. And through going through AFI, I kind of fell in love with film. Like, fell in love with just like the process of doing features and just watching a lot of features that I hadn't seen, honestly, when I was younger. And some of them I was like, I'm not a very, and this is not a critique, it's just a taste thing, but I'm not like very excited by stories that don't feel like they have story, like a beginning, middle, and end, and are very meandering or very like artsy. Like, I am very much like someone who's like, I want to be entertained, and if I'm writing it and making something, I want to be entertaining. Like, I don't, and that to me is always the priority. Like, is this fun to watch? Do I want to be here? Do I want to live in this world with these people? And do I want to do it again? Because that's the thing that always fascinated me about the things that not only would I watch once, but would I want to, because you said this too, you were like, hey, I enjoy rewatching this film. Like,
very much.
I think that's what I love when I make something, when I think about it or when I watch something that I really enjoy. I'm like, well, I want to figure out why this is a thing that I want to not just watch once, but go watch it again and go watch it again and go watch it again. And it makes me feel good. And I think that's what I realized that I want to create. It's like, there's so many things that in the world that incredible filmmakers and television makers make that I'm like, this is incredible art. It's incredible cinema. But I never want to watch this again. Like Severance. I don't want to rewatch that. You know what I mean? It's a great show. It's incredibly well done. But I don't want to live in that world. It makes me really sad.
You've nailed it. Absolutely. Because especially the golden era of situation sitcoms with The Office, like, I can't tell you how many times we've rewatched Parks and Recreation because it's the nicest thing to, it's just, and comedy is more rewatchable. Exactly. Because yeah, even when drama hits your heart, you're like, oh, that was great. But I don't need to have my heart pounded again. Whereas, yeah, absolutely. And you grew up during, honestly, a golden era of comedy, I think.
Mm-hmm. I think it was
and right now it's missing, I think, from the marketplace.
It's massively missing, and I think that's why I'm rewatching Scrubs right now, and then I was like so excited for the Scrubs reboot, and I was like nervous because reboots are always like up in the air, and then it's been great. I've been enjoying the Scrubs reboot. I love like just what Bill Lawrence does, because he does that mix of heart, like fun and silliness, but then there's still real stakes and emotional grounding where you're like, okay, this is a dramatic moment that makes me feel human, but also we get to be silly. So when you rewatch, it still doesn't feel like, oh, I'm sad. You just get to enjoy the fun stuff. And then when the heartfelt moments hit a little bit, you're like, okay, that was nice. But it doesn't make you like sad to be in this world. Being in that world is always fun. And I think that's what I would boil it down to for me, is just like, do I want to be in this world? Especially with TV, but with anything that I make, where I'm like, is this a world I want to be in? And is this a world I want to create for someone else to be in? Because there is, I think, especially as a filmmaker or a creator of any kind of piece of art, there's things where I'm like, this is great and I enjoy this as a consumer, but as an artist who's going to create something, I want to create a certain type of thing that makes people feel a certain way. And that's the way that I felt when I watched that golden era of sitcoms. And I was like, well, I just want to have people have a really fun time. It is an incredible feeling, I think, especially when you're like, as a short film playing in theaters, watching it with an audience with a comedy. Honestly, look, I've not done a lot of drugs, but I cannot imagine a bigger high than being in that theater and being like, people are laughing their asses off at something that you made. Because I remember, I think, every festival I've been to where we've played, like, it's just been laugh, 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 to the point where I'm like, I hope you can hear the other parts of the dialogue. And I'm like, this is the best problem I can possibly have. But it's very, very fulfilling.
Has to be. So let me ask about AFI, because you said, so you were in the writing program, and then the people in the production program would take scripts from the writing program and produce them, or were you producing them yourself?
So you would team up. We did this thing called like cycle films, and for the first set of cycle films, the writers would pitch their scripts, and then you would team up around the script. So a director would team up, producer, and then people who were interested in that story would basically kind of form a mishmash of teams. With the second and third, it was kind of optional for you as a writer to participate, because there are definitely like writers in our program who didn't want to go and make a movie. They just wanted to write their scripts, and which is, again, totally a valid choice. I think everyone has their own kind of personality when it comes to their creative process or what they're excited about. And like I said, I'm a TV person. TV is such a collaborative medium. And also that's what I came to film school for, was I wanted to meet people and find collaborators and just make stuff. Because I was like, there's no better way to learn how to do any of this than just to go out and make it. Because I think, it's so easy sometimes to forget when you are a screenwriter that a script is not a finished product. A script is a blueprint, and that's all it is. It's like, until you get that magic of the production design, the lighting, the cinematography, the actors, it's just a script.
Until you hear it spoken aloud, you really don't know what you have, right? Until you do a table read, even if it's with a bunch of other writers in a writer's room,
you don't know what you have.
It really is just, like you said, it's a blueprint. It's the skeleton.
It's a skeleton, and everyone like brings it to life. Like every department brings it to life. And I think so. I did the AFI program, got to make, I chose to participate in a lot of the just making of the movie stuff. I made a thesis film. I made, I think, 2 more cycles or maybe 1 more cycle. No, I made 2 more cycles. But like, I think I co-wrote some stuff with the director. It's been so long at this point, I think.
Yeah. The cool thing is it the kind of thing where also people can come to you and go, hey, can you give me you could give, because it is always funny to me. We've had a lot of stuff from AFI and it's always so wonderful. And I always think there's a whole writing program. Like sometimes we get a film and it's wonderfully directed and I'm like, God, if only the script was better. How come they didn't turn to the writers program and go, hey, help me out?
Yeah. I mean, I think that's, some directors, are better about that than others. I also think AFI is a very like artsy film school, very auteur driven, which is, again, that's just a taste thing. And I am not I'm not trying to make auteur cinema. That's not my lane by choice. It's just not what I enjoy watching. So I'm certainly not going to make that type of cinema. I appreciate it when it's done well, but it doesn't excite me as much as like making someone laugh, you know?
Yeah, no, I mean, who doesn't love comedy? I mean, I was about to say I have been a comedy nerd my entire life, and grew up on Bonnie Python and SCTV, and I like all that, and of course all the great sitcoms throughout history. And it's like I often say to filmmakers, like, when was the last? I cannot think of a must see comedy that was in theaters like since Bridesmaids, where everyone said, "Oh my God, it's so funny, you have to go see it."
Yeah.
Like if you would just please make those features for us.
Yeah.
Because the public, human beings crave comedy with heart and with certainly not, it's not vapid comedy. It's comedy about the human condition, for Pete's sake.
Yeah, about the human condition, but also like, I think being able to, I mean, this is obviously not so much in Giving Mom the Talk, but I think in general, there's also so much about speaking of the human condition, I think that we tend to laugh at things that are really fucked up. And I think there has been like this kind of backing away of like people feeling like they can laugh at things. And I'm like, it's not about deriding those things. It is about being able to cope. And that's how, like, so many people laugh at funerals. People talk about, and it's not because they're like, well, isn't it hilarious that this person died? Unless, slipped on a banana peel or something. Like, it's not about that. It's about the fact that sometimes that's just what humans are like. It's not linear. Our emotions are not linear. And it's not always predictable. And sometimes, you make a joke, and I think you need to be able to laugh at a fucked up situation to be able to process it sometimes. Because you're like, well, if I don't laugh at this, I'm going to cry. And if I start crying, who knows when that'll end. So might as well pick the laughing side of this.
And I think we know that our loved ones are happy for us to laugh about our positive memories too on that one.
Absolutely. But I think it's just like that ability to be like, all right, can I laugh at the situation enough to, move through it with my my soul intact.
And I'm going to add something while you have a sip of water, which is one of the things I love about Giving Mom the Talk is how, this throws shade at other writers, but I'm complimenting your storytelling in that a lot of people start with the funny premise and then they let drama take over. Right? Like, and your story could have gone from a really funny beginning to a very serious ending. And instead, it's delightful to the end without losing its soul and its purpose. And before we started recording, you said something that made me call it a feminist film. Yeah. But in the best possible. Well, first of all, there's no bad way to be feminist. Right. I want to be clear about my statement, but that you make a wonderful point about human sexual relations in relationships, and it's necessary and helpful, and to do it with humor and to show a woman's perspective with humor. It's something we need desperately. Yeah,
I thank you so much for saying that. I would say so. Also, for context, Giving Mom the Talk is a film about an Indian woman who has to give her mom a sex talk. So she's like basically helping her mom get her dad to go down on her for the first time. So it's super awkward. It's very funny, but that's the premise of the film. And I think, so two things. You said this beginning of the film was funny and it could have gotten very dramatic. I think it was very intentional to start also with that beginning because I wanted to make you feel just for a second that this was going to be the type of movie you've seen before about a woman and this immigrant experience, because we start in this grocery store. And then I immediately wanted to be like, that's not the movie you're going to be watching today, because one of the first things you hear afterwards is like vaginal discharge. And I think I just wanted to kind of be like, all right, this is the type of movie I want to watch. This is the type of movie you're expecting, and this is the type of movie we're gonna go. Like, I wanted to zag pretty quickly. And then the second thing about it being a feminist movie is, like, I think the whole point of the film is to be like, think about your partner in a heterosexual relationship, think about women's pleasure. I think regardless of age, but older women in general, I think they've been conditioned, and I think women in general in straight relationships have been conditioned not to ask for what we want, not to prioritize our needs in relationships, especially in sexual relationships. And it's not a factor of anybody else doing that, but it's just a social conditioning. And I wanted to kind of open up that conversation about, hey, it's hard for women to ask for what we want. So maybe if you are in a straight relationship, open up that door and be like, what do you want? That makes it a lot easier when someone is like asking you that question. But also for the women's side of things, try and prioritize what you want, even if it's uncomfortable. Open up that conversation and open that door, and that's hard too. And I think some of the best, because we talked about just like it being something that is, to me, universal. Like, it is, yes, you're seeing a South Asian perspective on this, but it's very universal. We played at River Run Film Festival in North Carolina. I wasn't able to make it to that one because my brother-in-law was getting married, but there was someone who watched the film there, and he was, a white man in his 50s who has 3 daughters, and he took the time to look me up and write me a note saying, I have 3 daughters and I hope they grow up in a world that is just more sex positive. And that made my day. And then I had an Indian woman who was like, this is the exact relationship I have with my daughter. She keeps talking to me about sex and I kind of want her to stop. And then I had someone else who's like, well, my mom and I had this type of relationship, but this is the type of relationship I have with my daughter. And can I send this film to my daughter? And I think those are the moments that make me feel like, okay, I did my job. But also, it's not a job anyone gave me to do, but I was like, it made me very happy because I was like, this is what I wanted to accomplish.
And you very much recognize that you struck a chord.
It was great. Of
the time. And I hinted at this before we started recording, which is I feel like you are unconsciously part of a movement that I have this weird position on this little planet, which is running 2 film festivals for the last decade. I get to see certain trends, and comedy took a real dip thanks to COVID because everyone started writing. And then there was also Me Too right before COVID, and there is a golden era of female-driven comedy that is nailing our festivals the last 2 years. Like the last 2 years, all our best comedy winners are written and directed by women. And in fact, at Sherman Oaks Film Festival, we had 3 or 4 brilliantly funny films written and directed by women about a woman's sex life.
Right.
And we didn't have that the first 8 years, and it's just wonderful. And it's like, honestly, it's just like, pick up the torch and take it, It is, we are well overdue, right? To have comedy from a women's perspective, a sex comedy from a women's perspective.
Yeah, and that makes me very happy because I was also like, I think for me it was also finding that like way in, because I feel like a lot of sex comedies also focus on very young women very often. And when I say like very young, I mean like 20s, 30s. Yeah. It's always like that's where the sex comedy lives, and it gets very raunchy sometimes. And I was like, I want this to be a very wholesome movie about oral sex. And as much as, it's a sex comedy, I'm like, it's actually just a mother-daughter film. And there is like 0 nudity in this film. Like,
True.
Which you think about it, I'm like, this is a sex comedy, and you will not see anybody's body parts in this movie. And I think that's something I'm very proud of, because I was like, there was an aspect of it when I was making the film where I was like, I feel like I'm going very hard for my first film to have two very intimate scenes and kind of having, just the very uncomfortable positions to put actors in. Like, at least for me, where I was like, oh, this is my first time doing directing. And this was a lot to kind of take on. And that way, I didn't think about it at the time.
So it's your first time directing, and you had to deal with intimacy on set. And
we had a great intimacy coordinator.
Yeah.
But and the actors again were great. But I think it was just like one of those things where I didn't think about it at the time, and then afterwards I'm like, I'm glad I didn't think about it at the time. It would have stressed me out if I actually put too much thought into the fact that I was doing this. But I think it worked out great. But it was just like this thing of, okay, I want to make, yes, it's a sex comedy, but it's almost like it is a mother-daughter film couched as a sex comedy. And I think it's also this thing when it comes to that feminist aspect of it. I think there's also like a conditioning of women just like not to be accepting of the fact that women like having sex. Just that is not something that is socially very acceptable. Or when it is talked about, it becomes like almost like a joke of like, very look how horny, look how this. And I think
there's shaming involved often.
Yeah, it's shaming sometimes, or I think it just becomes like a very butt of the joke. And that was the other reason also with my cast, I was very intentional because I was like, I don't want the joke of the film to be an older person wants to have sex. And that's why I was like, I have to cast all hot people. Like, because that's the only time where you're like, oh, the joke isn't, look how horny this older couple is. I didn't want that to become the
right. They
joke.
are attractive and they clearly have a healthy sex life. It's just there's something else that she'd like.
And there's
here I
something
am
missing.
Dancing around, and you've mentioned oral sex a few times.
Well, I think it's in the premise. We're not shying away from that. I think it's just the fact of like, oh, how do you broach the subject? And I think that's where the specific of it is. It's not about the discomfort of the act. It's about the discomfort of prioritizing yourself and being like, this is what I want. And especially for this character in the film, Mina, she is a mom, which I think by definition becomes this type of person who is a caretaker by nature, who has spent, and then she's an Indian mom, I think. So there's the added layer of like, I have spent so much of my life putting everyone else's needs before my own.
She shows up with breakfast.
And it's little things in every scene, but if you see, even in the scene where they're having the talk, like she's shelling pistachios. Like at any moment in time, in every scene, in the scene when she's asking the question, she's oiling her hair. It's always like she's in the midst of an act of taking care. And it's that struggle of like, okay, but can I take care of myself in this moment? And just ask for like this one little thing. And it's not about whether or not he's going to give it to her. It's about the discomfort of overcoming and being like, I just asked that question. And sometimes that's so hard. And that's something, obviously, I'm not, an Indian woman in her 50s, but I think I struggle with that as a woman, not just with, in the context of like a sex life or any of that stuff, but I think in the context of just asking for what you want is so uncomfortable, and just feeling like you have the right to ask for what you want sometimes is very uncomfortable. And I think it's channeling a lot of that energy, or just being like, sometimes the win is just being able to articulate what you want and not be sorry about it.
1,000%. Absolutely. And well, as someone in their 50s, but yes, that's it's wonderful. It's wonderful. And it's honestly, it's needed. I mean, we need a cultural shift. I mean, I can, there's hundreds of comedies we've seen over the years that involved oral sex where a woman is pleasuring a man. Like, it's just rampant. Mm-hmm. Rampant in all the comedies of the 70s and 80s, 90s till now. And it's ridiculous how few examples I can think of a straight relationship that's going the other direction. Yeah. It's I can't name it.
Yeah. I don't have any either.
And isn't that a damn shame? I mean,
it's really sad, but it's also again, it's like that cultural thing of like, I think there is a vulnerability, but there's a strength also, I think. And that's why one of my favorite people, even though he's not on screen so much in this film, but the dad character is actually my favorite person in this film, because he is such a lovely example of what men can be, which is like, be that goofy, be strong, be someone who's on the verge of just be such a dad, you know, like he's like just so obsessed with getting a dog, and you know, he's doing all these home projects that you're like, he's not gonna finish, you know, he's not gonna finish. But he's also someone who's just like, I listens to his partner and is like, I don't know what we're doing either, but I'm willing to try this with you, and because it's important to you. And I think those are the things as a man, I think that takes so much courage and so much more like manliness to be able to be that guy who's like, okay, not taking it as like a critique of what's happened in the past, but being like, oh, that's exciting, let's try this. And also just seeing a guy, I think my favorite scene is that, I don't want to spoil it, but you know, there's...
It's up to you. By the way, we've already stated that it's funnier each time you see it, so I'm not sure you can spoil it.
But the very last scene, I think, is just like that moment. There's a moment where he sees her dressed up and he's just like so in awe of his wife. And I think that to me is like, again, it's little ways I think about representation, you know, because there's a conversation always about representation and the stories that we see that influence how we think of ourselves in culture and what we expect in relationships. And I'm like, this is my little way of being like, what a healthy relationship looks like. You know what I mean? Like, I think there's an aspirational aspect sometimes. I even in some of the books I read, and don't get me wrong, I like them sometimes, but I also am very aware of like, this is a very problematic relationship. It's still hot, don't get me wrong. I will read it, I will watch it, but I'm like, it's kind of fucked up that this is aspirational. Like this guy who's unavailable emotionally, this guy who is like, the minute you criticize something is going to get really defensive and shut down. Like, that's not aspirational. It can be hot, but those two things are not, you know, the same thing. You could be like, this is attractive to me in an evolutionary level that I do not want to examine, but on a like sustainability level, this is not a good relationship to be in. And to have that self-awareness is great. But I'm like, well, can we see more characters and more men that you're like, it's hot, it's attractive, but also this is the type of relationship you should be in. Like, I think with both the men in the film, you're like, both, they're just like supportive people who supportive men who let their women be themselves, but also have their own lives. And there are people who are just like, okay, we're going to figure this out. They're not immediately going to get defensive or shut down a conversation.
So I'm gonna pile on with you, but because you are striking a note that I'm trying personally to refer to positive masculinity. I totally agree that there's such a thing as toxic masculinity. But what kills me about our society, and I don't know if it's global or just North America, is that
it's all around.
Right, it's all around. Is that the assumption is toxic masculinity means all masculinity is toxic? No, violence, rape, these things are toxic. Treating people badly, subjugating people is toxic. But being supportive, being protective, caring for your family, caring for your loved ones, all these things are positive masculinity.
Yes.
And so you really do have two examples of positive masculinity in your film. And so when I say it's a feminist, there's the subtle feminist story underneath all the comedy. But if a dude is listening to this and he's uptight about, oh, it's a women's, no, like you actually do portray positive masculinity, which how often do we get that? Like you said, we have so many examples. I mean, honestly, I'm just going to be a jerk. And like I really took offense to that show on Netflix everyone loved, Nobody Wants This, because I think that the man was acting so negatively so quickly. And he's a fucking rabbi, and I'm of Jewish descent, and I was like, this is actually the worst show I've ever seen. Like, I was violently angry with that show because he's mistreating a woman. He's being completely, it's completely selfish, actually, to be honest. So I find him toxic. And yet he's being played as the guy that she has to want because he's unreachable.
Right. I haven't watched the whole show, but like there's so many examples of that. Right? Like,
so many.
That's what I mean. Where I'm like, it's considered cute and aspirational because one, Adam Brody's adorable. So you're just like,
he's beautiful.
And that's what I mean. And I'm like, that circumvents a lot of like the bad shit a character does because the actor is just very charming.
Yeah, the charisma wins us over.
Yeah, like I think about it sometimes, and there's I don't know if you watched that Marvel movie Shang-Chi. It's like Simu Liu's in it, but his dad is a bad guy in the movie, but the actor who plays his dad is so hot that you're just like, I'm okay with that. And I think that's the problem. But like again, as an adult, I have the self-awareness, and as someone who's been in therapy, I have the self-awareness of like, I find this attractive, but this is also bad. You know what I mean? And both those things are they're not always mutually exclusive, but they can be. When you're aware of like, okay, this person has bad traits, but that's sometimes attractive. Like sometimes emotionally unavailable men turn you on, and that's not great. But I think there's also like sometimes there's a celebration of that type of behavior and aspirationalizing, like you said in the show, or there's so many shows that do that where there's like, oh, there's this bad person. Like I think about Scandal, right? Like I don't know if you ever watched that TV show, but you're like, this is like the worst relationship in the world. But it's hot when they're just all the yearning and just like, it's the fact that it's the president and he's not supposed to be doing it, like all that stuff. It's fun to watch on an entertainment level. But if you are someone who, as a woman or a man, you're just like trying to be in a relationship, I'm like, don't be that guy. That's not a good person to be. Don't be that girl either. Like Olivia Pope is also fucked up.
Well, and you're bringing up that the screen does glorify, I remember when Saving Private Ryan came out, and they're like, yeah, this is going to be the first war film that doesn't glorify war. We're going to make it so gritty that it's going to be a turnoff. No, it doesn't do that. The super grittiness just glorified it even more, and dudes are like, it's like a video game, man. It's so much killing, and it's like you can't put something on. Yeah, you can't have the Simu Liu character's dad be. He's on screen, and that's already glamorous. You know what I mean? And then if they make him a horrible-looking person then you're just portraying crazy. Ugliness as negative too. Yeah. It's like,
and that's not it. And look, they're never saying he's a good guy, but the fact that he's a bad guy gets so undercut by how charming the actor is, because he's just such a he's got that zaddy energy, and you're just like, okay, Tony Leung, you do you. I will watch it.
But I'm trying to say, the way you told your story, and I'm kind of reading into it that this is your intention to write this way for good, on and on and on, is that we can glorify these positive things, and it's still great storytelling, and it's still hot, and it's still entertaining, right?
Yeah, I'm just like, good relationships can be hot too, and like not fighting, but having a supportive partner can be sexy, and having a dynamic where you can just be open about, this is what I want, that's really sexy. Like being able to have that communication, I think, is really sexy. And I'm not saying the other stuff isn't, but I'm saying there's another way where we can just be happy, because there's this idea of like, and there's shows that have been made about it, where it's like, there's the guy you marry, and then there's the one that got away who was, the sex is great and everything was amazing, but that would have just never worked, because you either get the stable guy or you get the sexy guy. You can't get both. And I'm like, why not? I mean, and not to be like, again, I'm not bragging, but I'm like, I feel like I have that in my husband. I find him incredibly sexy, but he's also incredibly supportive. He's an actor. He helped produce the film, and I think I've definitely probably the first relationship I've been in where I'm like, I have a partner and he's hot. And, you know, we enjoy our...
You have a good life.
We have a good life. And I think that's something
And a
I
good
aspire
life,
to.
you don't have a good life if you don't have a good sex life.
You don't. But it's also like that sex life is something I think also, and with the film, I think that's also my intention, where it's like if you don't communicate with each other, especially as a woman, for men, sex is easy. For not trying to like say sex is not important, but sex is easier for men versus like with women. I feel like it's such a unique experience for each woman and what you like. And if you're not able to communicate with your partner, this is what I want, you could be with the best person in the world, but that sex life's gonna be not good because you're not able to say this is what I want.
Exactly. And chemistry is important, but communication can improve, right? And people can learn. And I love that you're saying, because we're also dealing with the fact that we have a couple hundred years of nice guys finish last, so to speak. And you're trying to correct that too.
And I'm trying to correct a lot of, I think, the stereotypes that get shoved down my throat that I don't like. And with this film, it's nice guys finish last because I've only had the worst human beings in the world say that to me. You know what I mean? I've had like an ex say, yeah, nice guys always finish last. And I'm like, you are not a nice guy. You are a piece of shit. So I don't know why you're even trying to get in this lane and claim that that's what's happening here. You know what I mean? And I think the other one is just the representation, I feel like, of South Asian relationships in Western media, where it's always just like, oh, it's contentious. Oh, it needs to be a parent who doesn't get along with their kid, or have the culture kind of become this element of conflict.
Yeah, generational conflict, cultural conflict.
Yeah.
So much conflict that it's trite.
It's trite. And I think even in, like, I'm not trying to say those relationships don't exist, but when those things happen, I think they get reduced to the conflict and not understanding why there's that conflict in the first place. Because very often with generational conflict in not just South Asian families, but I think with any immigrant family, there is an element of just not speaking the same shared language. And when I say that, it's not the literal language, but understanding that what this person wants and this person wants are very different, but both are coming from a place of like actually the best way to think about it is like a parent and a child in this dynamic. Both people want the child to be happy, but that definition of what will keep that child happy is very different. Like, I think very often what happens with that conflict with South Asian parents is just like South Asian parents are like, well, you will be happy if you are safe and stable. Whereas with the kids, they're just like, I will be happy if I'm free and you stop telling me what to do. But it's still coming from a place of love, and that triteness is what has always bothered me, where it's just like, oh, the parents get reduced to a stereotype very often. And I was like, that's something I wanted to change with this film. I wanted to also show an interracial relationship in a South Asian family, you know, that's not with a white person as the partner, and is, again, not a point of conflict. Like, the movie is not about them getting together and the family trying to accept, you know.
The fact that it's just seamless for all the characters that relationship is there is all you needed to do, to just say, look, see, this is possible.
And it exists, and it's not something that I made up, right? Like, so I grew up in Nigeria. Like, that's where I was born, that's where I grew up. And I've seen so many, like, mixed families with, you know, Indian daughter, Nigerian husband, Nigerian daughter, Indian husband, like, just so many mixed families. And it's not, you know, like, I'm not saying some of them haven't been contentious, but just as much have not been contentious. Just as much as just, like, a point of love. You know, everyone's coming to the big parties. Everyone's having a big celebration. There's a Nigerian wedding. There's an Indian wedding. It's the best food in the world. Like, we have that, but you never get to see that. And I'm like, well, I want to showcase this side of it. And to me, that's what representation does, whether it's like about positive masculinity, whether it's about an interracial relationship, whether it's about South Asian culture. I think normalizing something is the most powerful representation you can have. Not trying to be like, look how different and unique this is, but look how normal this is. Look how similar to every other thing this is, in that these are just people who love their kids, who love their families, who want to spend time together. And I think that's what good representation does. It reminds you how similar we are to each other and not how different we are to each other.
Absolutely.
You know?
And by having all that in a film that is wildly entertaining and very funny and delightful, I think I'm sure it resonates even deeper than if it had been a film about that. You know what I mean?
I think
because
so.
a film about that feels like a lecture.
It always feels like a lecture to me when people are also just discussing something, or they're just like, oh, you don't fit in. This is a point of conflict. We're going to make this the point of this film. And I'm like, I'm not, again, no shade to those films, no shade to that story. But to me, I'm like, that doesn't move the needle for me as much as like seeing something being dropped into a world of characters where you're like, this is their world. I'm not going to explain this world to you. There's little kind of things that, you know, if you are of South Asian culture, I think like I've had people who are more South Asian write me like very nice emails being like, oh, at every moment, like with the curd rice, like that, the when she's feeding her, like when a mom is feeding an older daughter and like that's not the joke, that's not the punchline. My mom still feeds me if I go home, and I'm like, I love this. This is one of the best things in the world for me because it's how she shows me love. And I'm like, I'm very loved, and that's a great reminder of that feeling. And sometimes I'll just be like, I'm going to be a baby right now, and I'm going to enjoy this, you know? And to me, like making those moments of culture, even just the fact that I don't explain it, but it's a very rooted in Asian culture, not even just South Asian culture, of like having your mom come and stay with you when you're pregnant to help out. That's a very cultural thing. And I'm like, I want to show the positive aspects of the culture. Not that there are negative aspects of the culture, but to showcase the positive aspects of the culture in a way that normalizes it. And when I say normalize, I'm like, not just to be like, okay, this is how everyone should be, but this is how this is. These are real lives of these real people. And I want it to feel real, but still feel funny. And give you the sense of like, again, we are all people, and we all love our kids, we all love our families, we want to spend time together. We have those same things as human beings, which is we all want those same, you know, 5 things. We want love, we want sex, we want power, we want money, and that's the same for everyone. And I think when representation does a great job with that, I think that's more moving, where you're like, okay, well, I see a positive relationship. I see a sexy Indian dad. I see an interracial relationship that's not a point of conflict. I see this dynamic that this is not how a relationship needs to be, where it's always filled with conflict. And it's not about trauma also. And I think that's something sometimes, you know, I, again, want to push back against when it comes to a good story does not need to be traumatic. A good story can be entertaining and funny and just be a great story. It doesn't have to be look at trauma and look at how much trauma and look how sad and how much crying before something was overcome. Again, there's a lot of great artists telling a lot of important stories in that way, but I'm like, that's not the only way to get a message across with a film. Like, it doesn't have to be about showcasing how difficult life is.
Absolutely. And I have to share 2 things. The first is, I love what you're talking about, because another thing I've noticed as a festival runner is that the more specific the story, the more specific this specificity is universal. So when they're actually, last year we had a film called Papa's Corner, purely Filipino film. Every character is Filipino, writer, director, everybody. And it was about a grandfather who taught an art class in his garage. And every person watching this extremely Filipino film saw their own grandfather, because it was so specific, it was universal. Whereas you'd had a generic grandfather who doesn't seem like a real person, then it looks like no one's grandfather.
Yeah. So
just like that gentleman in North Carolina sent you the thing saying, I hope my daughter's, right? Like, by making your story so specific and truthful, it makes it universal and everybody gets something out of it.
Yeah.
Which is wonderful.
Yeah.
And the other thing I wanted to share with you is I've had a lot of female Chinese filmmakers come through the festival circuit now, and guys too, who have said, we are sick of this negative portrayal of tiger moms. Like they're like, our whole point is, yeah, fine, sometimes our moms are hard, but that's not the only thing to say about them.
And that's not the defining factor about them. And also, hey, have you thought about maybe something the tiger moms are doing is working? Like, I don't know. I'm not saying that you have to be a tiger mom, but I'm not endorsing that that's what it needs to be. But I'm just saying, like, there isn't just one thing. There's a reason that certain, tiger moms kids tend to be very successful sometimes. So maybe there's something there. It's just like you only get that one version of the story, and it's just through this point of view of like, this is what I've decided this
right?
is.
And it's artificial, whereas a more full representation where you really do see that that's just a mom who wants what's best for their kid. And yeah, I mean, it's just...
They might not always be going
right?
about it the right way. And I'm not saying, but that's also like a generalized idea of what a tiger mom is, and this is what it is. And I think starting from an archetype is fine, but leaning into a stereotype with no layer and without any context. I think with storytelling, context is everything. And when I say context, I'm like, you don't need to give exposition about a character, but I think being able to know as the person making it who this person is and know that their identity does not define them. And I think that's what it boils down to for me.
One of the most true things I ever heard a writing professor say I'm old, so this was in the 80s, so I can't name what famous screenwriter said this, but it was, if you write a person, you get a character. If you write a character, you get a character type. If you write a character type, you get a stereotype. You write a stereotype, you got nothing. Because whatever you do, you get one level lower.
Yeah.
So just write a real person, and then there'll be people on screen who are characters. But if you write a character type, you write a stereotype, you end up with an audience just looking at their phones.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and you wrote real people.
Yeah. I mean, I wanted
all four of them.
Thank you. I think it's just like I said, I think knowing that I wanted them to feel like human beings that you can relate to and connect with, and not have it be this thing that alienates you from them, and I didn't want it to be about like, oh, well, look at the outfits. Isn't that exotic? Look at this. Is that, you know what I mean? And it was this kind of, even with the aesthetics of the film and just the choices of like how I wanted to edit stuff, I was like, some of it is obviously just constraints, but some of it was like we shot the film in my apartment, so just for context, but there's
so that built in some color choices, I guess, because
no,
it's so colorfully beautiful.
I painted my apartment for the film.
so right, so you did production design for it. Gotcha.
I painted our apartment for the film, and I was like, I just need to paint it colors that I can live with after this is shot. The wallpaper we took off, because the bedrooms, we shot one bedroom as two different locations for the two bedrooms, and it was, we had wallpaper on one wall, but that was also a choice where I was like, I just don't like I'm Indian, and I grew up in Nigeria and India before I moved here, and I've just never liked the aesthetics of films that feel very like pale and like washed out, and there's not like color. So I was like, I just want color in everything. Like, I want everything to feel warm and feel, again, like a world I want to live in. For even if it's for 15 minutes, I want to like spend my time in that world and be like, oh, that's cute.
Absolutely. And it also feels more real, right? And it's more immediate because, yeah, a lot of films, I guess it's probably so because sometimes they just like grab an air. I don't know what happens. But I mean, you look around, most homes you walk into, there's not bare white walls.
There's not. There's not bare white walls. And that was like, honestly, my big rule with the whole thing was just like, I don't want any white spaces in the film. And my cinematographer, I think was very thrilled to hear it. He was like, okay, I don't have to ask for that. And I was like, no, absolutely not. Like, I want every frame to feel colorful. And I also, I mean, even with everything, like, we just, it was very intentional. Like, even the aspect ratio of the film, just shooting in 4:3, because I was like, it's a film that's very intimate about intimacy. So I want to feel intimate with the characters. So that was like, the 4:3 was because I wanted to be with everyone, feel close to the characters, and not, have a lot of extra space in the frame. Because I just want you to feel like you're in there with them and feel intimate. And I think even with the choice of, that was one of the first shots I conceived of with the film, but I immediately pictured kind of that reaction shot of all of them when, there's that
with
walk-in.
the slash.
Yeah.
Because that is so good to see 3 people's reactions in one moment at once. And it's unique and original.
It was like probably the first thing I pictured when I wrote the script was like that shot. I remember drawing it and showing it to my cinematographer, because when my editor first did the initial split screens, they were all like straight lines.
Right.
And I was like, no, I want them to be in these like slanted format, because I think that makes a huge difference versus just seeing the straight lines. And it makes each image a little more cinematic too, because there's width to it. Yeah. It's just really. By the way, when you started writing this, were you thinking about directing it right from the beginning? I wrote it for me to direct. To direct, okay. Yes. So you made it. So here we've been so into the subject. I haven't gotten into, after you got your MFA and whatnot. Yeah. What was the process between finishing that and making this film? So like I said, when I moved here and when I got to film school, I was very much like set on writing for television and writing for TV comedy. So after I graduated from film school, I actually was like, I don't want to direct. Like, I went through film school. I think AFI made me like features, but I was still like, I'm a TV gal. Like, I want to do television comedy and I want to write. Like, I was very set on that. And then I started writing for TV. I worked on a Disney Junior show called Meet a Royal Detective. Then I worked on Solar Opposites, which is like the Hulu show, for 2 seasons on season 3 and 4. And then I worked on Kite Man for DC Comics, which is like it's on HBO Max. It's the spin-off of Harley Quinn. And then I worked on Harley Quinn, which was a dream because I love that show. I was such a huge fan. And I got to work on it. And then I worked on an Amazon show called Has Been Hotel for 2 seasons. Somewhere in between there, I sold a couple of shows. And I worked on an Apple show called Little Voice. So I did a lot of TV. Right. I wrote a lot of TV. Look, that's huge. That's wonderful to hear, because a lot of people struggle to get in those writers' rooms. So congratulations. That's fantastic. Thank you. Yeah, it was a great experience. And I think like coming off of, once I wrapped like the Harley Quinn room, I think that's when I was like, I had sold a show, and it was just like going through that development process, which is great, but also takes a long time. And I think I sold a show, and then, you're like, oh, I'm rewriting this. And there's just this feeling of like, I want to make it. Like, I don't want to keep rewriting this script over and over. And I think at that point, I'd also spent time in rooms, I'd, produced episodes. I'd had this experience to the point where I was like, oh, I know I have a vision now, and I know what I want. And I was like, let me just write something that I can make and make quickly, so that I can also see, like, it was also a little bit of an experiment to see if I like to direct. I was like, let's do this. Let's do it in a way that, I can do easily. And when I say easily, it wasn't like super easy, but I mean like just make it quickly. And I didn't want to like, do. And it wasn't like a crazy number of locations or any of that stuff, like from a producibility standpoint. And I was like, let me just go direct it and see if I like to direct. Because if I like to direct, then I can make more of my own stuff. And the more of my own stuff I can make, the less I'm just sitting with a bunch of blueprints. And even if I sell the blueprints, I'm just like, it's not getting made sometimes. And that's frustrating, or it takes a really long time to get made. And that's frustrating. And I think directing this film really like kind of reignited my just creative joy, because, you know, it's great to be in those rooms, but sometimes you're just like, the downside of it sometimes is like, oh, well, you're working for someone else's show, which is an incredible skill to have, and I've worked with some amazing people, but you're not, you know, you sometimes forget why you got into this in the first place.
You're writing in their voice.
You're writing
You've
their
developed
voice,
that skill to write for their voice.
which is great. Like, it's a very hard skill, and I'm very good at it now, so I think that's something I'm very happy to have. But then you're also like, well, here's my voice, and my voice needs to kind of get back into its zone, and this was a great way for me to get back into my voice, and also just discover in a fun way of like, oh, I like directing, I actually really love directing, to find a team of collaborators that I really enjoyed working with, and some people that I'd just been wanting to work with for a long time. And Garrick, who plays the husband of the younger couple, was a writer with me on Solar Opposites. Like, I just cast a bunch of people that I've known for a while and I've wanted to work with, except for Karthik, who plays the hot dad. Him I met through my lead actor, through Kavi, because I was like, do you know anyone whose face you'd want to sit on?
Right. So after you cast your mom, of course she knew actors.
Yeah, I was like also trying to find someone who could speak Tamil, but I was like, because she's actually doesn't speak Tamil either, but she's like from South India, and we work together on just like some of that dialogue. But Karthik's actually Tamilian, like he's a native Tamil speaker, and also just I changed that part once I cast him, because he was like, I wasn't sure if I would get like a really like sexy dad, and I'd initially written it for this other actor that I was friends with, and he's not like as like, you know, overtly hot. He's like more of like an uncle, like dad. He's cute, but he's not like a hot dad energy. And then when I cast Karthik, I was like, oh, I can actually go really hot with this. And once I cast him, I was like, so I'm going to have you be shirtless, which was not part of it initially. And he was like, he didn't drink beer for like 6 weeks.
he was aware he wanted to be his best self that day.
Well, yeah, because I was like, I'm going to have you like lift your shirt up and show your abs and, you know, all that stuff. And he was like, okay. And he was doing like bicep curls and push-ups between takes when we were shooting that fantasy scene. And it was the most fun I've had shooting anything.
Honestly, that's another wonderful thing about the film that I kind of lost sight of for a good chunk, which is I just love the portrayal of people my age being attractive and sexual. Mm-hmm. Like, how often do we get that? And by the way, normally it would be a guy in his 50s and a woman 20 years younger.
Yes. And that's something I was like, absolutely not. Because also Kavi's so attractive, and that was a big part of it where I'm like, and they have really good chemistry. Except for the part where I feel like I had to tell Kavi this, because she's like, Karthik's like my brother. And I'm like, don't say that to me. It's weird when I'm going to direct. And she's like, well, yeah, we're actors. Obviously, when we do our job. I'm like, just don't say it to me. It makes me very uncomfortable. Because they're very good friends, and he is like her brother. But I'm like, just don't say that. It ruins the movie for me.
Yeah. For actors are like, oh yeah, someone's like your brother, but then on screen you'll make out with them.
Yeah.
Whereas for us, that's not. I can't.
I'm just like,
doesn't work for me.
Yeah, I'm just like, don't, it works for her. I'm like, just don't say it to me. They're ruining this. Also, like, it's just like when we got him all oiled up when we were shooting that scene, I remember just with the lighting and everything, like, he's an attractive guy, don't get me wrong, but when we like got the frame, I was just like, damn, Karthik.
Yeah. That's actually one of those intangibles that you notice over time, especially if you live in LA and you see actors in real life. Some people, the camera just does something magical to. And some people are unbelievably attractive when you see them at the supermarket, and then on TV they're like, oh, like that's not who I saw at Ralph's. Yes. It's very weird, right?
It's very weird, and I think, but it's also like, I think it's a credit to my cinematographer and also just what we wanted to do. I was like very clear on like how I wanted it to be like lit, very much like a, you know, R&B like music video energy, where it's just like
you went, the music choices were very cool. Maybe a callback to the 70s, but
that was what I was also like. I just wanted to feel like the minute you see him, it's like Genuine's Pony is like in your brain, you know, a little bit, but it's just like it's very slow, sexual, because I wanted the fantasy also, because you see a lot of male fantasies, straight male fantasies, and I'm like, with women and our fantasies, I think it's like so less about seeing someone naked and so much about a character and a type of person. And I think that's why it's
behaviors and acts, right?
Behaviors, acts, and just like that ability to be someone who feels like protective, but also like vulnerable in a weird way, you know what I mean? And I think the sexiest thing to me that someone can say is like, what do you want? And I think that's why I have that in the film where he's just like, what do you want? Tell me what you want. And that's her fantasy. It's like someone being like, what do you want?
Yeah.
Tell me what you want.
Opening that door for her, for her to walk through.
Yeah.
So many more things that I could praise, but I'll ask. So I'm really getting the vibe that you love directing now. Mm-hmm. So are you thinking about being a showrunner? Are you thinking about making more shorts and features?
I'm definitely like gonna do the showrunner thing, but I also want to direct.
Because I could see this as a pilot, to be honest. I would love to see more of these characters.
It is like, I mean, for Series Fest, where, you know, I kind of chalked out the whole like TV show, and it is definitely like got that TV energy, because like I said, I'm a huge TV nerd, and I like, for me it's always like the thing I enjoy about this is being able to do a bunch of different things. So I want to do this showrunner thing. I want to direct my own pilots, but I also want to direct features. I think with shorts it's like kind of like giving Mom the Talk, where I'd want something that feels like it could live beyond this and not be a short that ends with the short. So I'm working on a proof of concept for my feature that I'm going to direct next, which is it's going to be like a really cool like music video. So
a music video will be the proof of concept. Mm-hmm. Oh, that's unique. That's a very cool idea.
So we're working on
You know, we have music video categories at our festivals. Ooh. And not enough music video creators look for festival runs, right? They tend to throw them on YouTube and then it's done. And so, we're always desperate for really high quality music videos.
I'll keep you posted. But that's what I'm working on next. And then I'm working on another pilot, and then we're pitching another pilot at the time. But, you know, just always got a bunch of stuff in the works.
Excellent. Well, that's so cool. Yeah. So cool. I feel like we could talk another hour, but we should probably wrap it up.
Yeah.
So, but congratulations on everything.
Thank you so much, and thank you again for having me. This is lovely.
Oh, it was my pleasure. And, I'll thank you for being here. And I will do the wrap up. Well, first of all, we'll put your Instagram. It'll be a clickable link in the show notes if people want to follow your Instagram, and then they'll be able to see when your film is playing at some festivals.
Yeah. And
anything else you do and throw on there?
Yeah, I mean, I think my Instagram is @HeyIyer, @HEYIYER. I think that's pretty much my handle on everything. On TikTok.
It's good to have it universal, and
and my company's handle is @TingyProds. It's @TINGIPRODS. So follow if you want to just keep up with what's going on, and I'm @HeyIyer on YouTube as well. So that's where the link will come up for the film.
Oh, excellent. All right, so I'm going to give myself a little note right when we finish that this at Hey Iyer is both Instagram and YouTube. Is it everything? You use that on,
pretty much.
You've got it everywhere.
Yeah, pretty
very
much.
Cool. Very cool.
I'm not very active on anything other than YouTube, Instagram.
Yeah, those tend to be the big two.
I'm trying to do more TikTok, but I'm not a kid, you know.
I hear you. I couldn't crack it. I couldn't figure out how to.
I feel like I just need to give it the time, and since I'm just kind of like I'll figure it out when I have more time for it.
Well, or something else will replace it, and then you can get in on the ground floor or something.
Sure.
Because who knows? Who knows?
That's true.
All right. Well, thank you again. And thank you, everyone, for listening. If you want to learn more about the Discover Indie Film podcast, where we talk to filmmakers on the festival circuit, just go to discoverindiefilm.com. And on social media, it's always at DIFwins. I personally quit social media a year and a half ago. Go figure. But
That's
my
great.
wonderful podcast producer, Karina, checks. We actually did cancel the Twitter X account, but if you go to Facebook, Instagram, this, that, and the other. Actually, I don't believe we bothered with TikTok, but if you write to this podcast at DIFwins, Karina answers your questions and or comments or forwards them to me if it's just to tell me how bad I am at what I do. But just kidding. And if you change that to an org, if you make it discoverindiefilm.org, that is the nonprofit that runs 2 festivals in the LA area. Both are rated in the top 100 best reviewed list by filmmakers worldwide out of 14,000 festivals, by the way. And that's Sherman Oaks Film Festival and Film Invasion Los Angeles. And I always call them sister festivals. You can get to both of their websites through discoverindiefilm.org. And I call them sisters. And this year they got a cousin in South America. Film Invasion Lima happened in June. Next year it's going to be in February. So now Film Invasion Lima has joined Film Invasion LA and Sherman Oaks Film Festival. Wonderful team down in Lima running that. So lucky. So anyway, and there's always possibilities for more film invasions, but I shouldn't say it. Don't want to curse it. So anyway, thank you again, Vidya. And thank you everyone for listening.
Thank you.
I'm glad you put in that extra. Thank you.